Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson. Man, this is a head scratcher. I mean, what do you think this plays out like? Who do you think wins between Gaethje and Ferguson here?
Well, let's back up. If this was 2 weeks ago, like it was supposed to be, Tony Ferguson, nothing to see here. This is totally different with Gaethje getting an extra 3 weeks. It's totally different. 3 of those weeks, 2 of them will be spent training hard. He'll taper the last week, but so will Tony. You give a guy 2 weeks, and 2 may not sound like much, but I can tell you can get into shape in 2 weeks. And Tony had already had 3. Now, 3's not quite enough for 5 rounds. 3's not quite enough for anything, but it's not a terrible spot. 2 extra weeks changes this fight. Now, if you want a prediction, I still lean towards Tony, but I do think instead of this being 2 rounds of fun, you're now looking at closer to 4 rounds of fun. I prefer, as a fan, I prefer that we got a little more time for these guys.
Maybe this is just a silly question from somebody who doesn't know, who's never fought, but Tony Ferguson doing, in a sense, back-to-back weight cuts so close together. Do you think that has any effect on him, bringing himself down like that?
Okay, I think it's a fair talking point. Now, how should we interpret it ahead of time? Look, this is an experiment, okay? Nobody knows, does pulling down and drawing your body out and then 2 weeks later doing it again, is that helpful? Are we all going to look back and go, wow, that's what we should be doing? We shouldn't be taxing ourselves in that last 48 hours where you're dragging out there 24 hours later. We should be doing it over a longer stay. Is that what we're going to find? I don't know. I will just remind you of this. Tony is a wrestler. Tony, in fact, won a national championship at college wrestling. In college wrestling, you will have 30 matches over the season, and you will have 16 weigh-ins 1 week apart. So this is nothing new for Tony. The fact that people have made a big deal that he weighed in, and 2 weeks later he's got to weigh in again. He grew up weighing in every single Saturday morning. So never once in his wrestling career has any wrestler ever looked back and go, well, I had a bad night tonight, but I think it's because I weighed in last week. One's got nothing to do with the other.
This is a bit of an interesting one. I mean, if Gaethje can beat Tony, it looks like he'd fight Khabib. And if Tony beats Gaethje, it's Khabib and him for the 7th possible time. But who do you think is the tougher challenge for Khabib? Because for a long time, people have believed Justin Gaethje was the dark horse to beat Khabib in the division. Do you believe Gaethje or Ferguson? Who do you think is the toughest one for him?
I think that it would be Ferguson. And I think the first thing you have to do if you want to find anybody to deal with Khabib, and it was the same thing you had to do if you were going to find anybody to deal with St. Pierre, of which they never did. But you have to find somebody that can match his pace. If the guy simply can't hold up at the end of the match because he's too tired, the X's and O's really don't matter. It doesn't matter who's got a black belt or a purple belt or who's got more experience or who's faster or better or strong. If one guy can push harder longer than the other and it's a sizable gap, there's nothing to see here. You're right. This isn't the punch you don't punch me business. This is I make you quit or you make me quit. That's what it's all about. You guys will see rear naked chokes all over the place. Nobody been caught in a rear naked choke since UFC 2. One guy has had enough. He turns over, makes sure that the camera looks good, and then he taps out. Shucks, I got caught. This is the I quit business. And I do think that Tony Ferguson, with his pace in that 25 minutes, is the first guy yet to be comparable to that intangible that Khabib has, which is a pace that's as hard in the 24th minute as it was in the 4th.
Absolutely. We need to see Tony versus Khabib. I guess Dana White's been pretty clear about the fact that he would like to see Conor McGregor rematch Khabib. It's a massive, massive money fight. Where do you think this delay and all this whole situation puts Conor McGregor, especially because people are thinking, hey, maybe he can fight Justin Gaethje, or now Justin's booked. So with all the top guys in the division booked, where does this put Conor McGregor? Do you think now is the time for the Nate Diaz trilogy?
Yes, exactly. You took it out of my mouth. I think now's the perfect time for that. And, look, I know everything that's been said is we're going to keep Conor on ice and we're going to put him against Khabib, the winner of Khabib, Tony, in September. But, of course, that was believing that Khabib was going to win. You have to understand, if that is still the plan, then that means we're getting ready to pull the screw job on Tony a second time. Okay, they have promised Tony a interim world title fight a second time. The first time he did it, he never lost it, and all of a sudden that belt is gone. We as fans cannot allow that to happen. If Tony comes out of this thing, Tony needs to be fighting Khabib. And if at some point they try to slide Conor, which is highly likely, possible, at least, maybe not likely, but possible, that means we screwed Tony a second time, man. We can't let that happen.